All right, so let's get you the latest in terms of what is happening with the war in Ukraine. Today happens to be the day 5 of Russian invasion into Ukraine. And the Ukrainian military has said that the Russian troops have in fact slowed down the pace of their offensive. Let's get you the details as they are emerging in the war zone. At the top of the hour, Russia and Ukraine will be holding talks at the Chernobyl exclusion zone, which is expected to start in some time from now. The composition of the Ukrainian delegation at talks in Belarus has not been disclosed, but it is reported to be of a pretty high level. It's not confirmed whether Volodymyr Zelensky himself will be a part of the delegation. However, it's been confirmed that Russia is interested in finding a way for an agreement with the Ukrainian delegation as soon as possible. This after the Ukrainian president held talks with the Belarusian strongman leader Alexander Lukashenko. Although Zelensky has not said that he believes in the possibility of an immediate outcome due to this meeting. Belarus, however, has said that the venue for the talks is now prepared.
Скажу відверто, як завжди, я не дуже вірю в результат цієї зустрічі, але нехай спробують. Щоб потім у жодного громадянина України не було жодного сумніву, що я, як президент, не намагався зупинити війну, коли був нехай і маленький, але все ж таки шанс.
Now, according to reports, Russia's defense ministry has said that its forces have now taken control of the Ukrainian cities of Berdyansk and Enerhodar, and the Russian troops have also taken over the area around Zaporizhia nuclear power plant. The Russian army has said that civilians can in fact leave freely from Kiev if they so wish to, adding that Ukrainians are using civilians as human shields. It has also claimed that Russia has established clear air superiority over the Ukrainian skies. Reports at this point of time, all of these, remember, are claims and counterclaims, but these are reports that state that there's been heavy casualties which the Russian troops have suffered over the course of the fighting in the last few days. A blanket curfew had been imposed on Kiev for the last 3 days, and that has now been lifted this morning. And this has now allowed students to now move westward through the trains. Blasts have also been reported in the Ukrainian capital of Kiev in the early hours of the 5th day of the siege. Now, to give us more insights in terms of what is likely to happen in the negotiations today and what is, of course, going to be the Russian approach for the talks and for the subsequent operations in the war, we are joined in by our correspondent Stuart Smith, who's joining us live from Moscow. Stuart, bring us up to speed with what the Russian delegation is likely to, in fact, put forth as conditions for a possible agreement for peace today in the meeting.
Yeah, well, the latest...
All right, there seems to be a bit of a trouble in the line with Stuart. We'll try get him back on line with us. But this, of course, is what is expected in the next some time, in about an hour from now. We expect the two delegations, the Russian delegation and the Ukrainian delegation, of course, come together. The venue, according to the Belarusian officials, is ready. And this is where the talks will, of course, take place. Remember, this is the 5th straight day of fighting. A curfew had been imposed by the Ukrainian authorities for the people in their large cities, which has now been lifted. People have been allowed to come out from their war bunkers, from the metro stations where they've been taking shelter, and they've been told to, in fact, move to safer areas if they need to, and also to collect food and other essential supplies, so long as they are allowed and able to move around above ground. Otherwise, Ukrainian officials have said that people must remain indoors as much as possible because the possibility of airstrikes is still very real. All right, I'm told that my colleague Stuart Smith is back with us online. So, Stuart, bring us up to speed with what is expected in these talks that will be held today.
Yeah, that's right. We know that the Russian delegation have previously described what they're willing to get from Ukraine. Of course, we don't know their precise negotiating strategy or what room there is for maneuver on these points. But let me tell you what Russia would like to see in an ideal situation. It's saying it would like Crimea to be recognized as Russian, the separatist eastern republics that were declared that declared themselves independent of Ukraine. These must be fully recognized as independent. Ukraine would have to withdraw all weapons from its territory, and it would have to withdraw its request to join the NATO military alliance. But those were the set of requests before Russia made such inroads into Ukraine, and it's not clear whether still Russia would be amenable to simply just Crimea and those eastern regions being recognized as Russian or independent, or whether Russia would be looking for more territory than that. It's also not clear whether Russia would truly be content with the current Ukrainian government staying in power, having now called those people leading Ukraine neo-Nazis and drug addicts, whether that is still a set of government officials that Russia would be happy in place. Ukraine says that it's not willing to compromise or cede an inch of territory, which is not a good sign in terms of what may or may not be able to be the outcome of these negotiations, because ceding territory is likely to be high on Russia's list of discussion points, and that's why Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky is so skeptical about the ability of these talks to provide any peaceful resolution. But both sides say they are open to dialogue. This meeting was arranged without any preconditions, apart from the safety of the Ukrainian side guaranteed by Belarus. But aside from that, we don't know who is willing to budge and by how much. It's also not clear whether Russia is taking these negotiations in good faith with a potential outcome for Ukraine, or whether this is still a much bigger issue than just Ukraine itself. Take your mind back to just a month ago, even 2 weeks ago, when this debate was still about Russia's national security demands. They did include Ukraine, of course, but they also demanded more. They demanded that, in effect, the NATO alliance rolled back its situation to 1997, which means that no new members will be allowed to join, and also no Western military equipment will be able to be placed on the countries of sort of Estonia, Lithuania, Latvia, where now there is a NATO deployment as we speak, for the first time ever, a rapid reaction force. So is all of this going to end, even if Ukraine were to cede all of Russia's demands, or is this even bigger, with the US and NATO still posing a threat in Russia's mind to the national security of the Kremlin and Moscow?
I think that's an important point that you've, of course, put forth as to what, of course, Russia expects. But at this point of time, do we know anything at all about whether Russia is insisting that Volodymyr Zelensky will have to go for peace to be given a chance?
No, we don't know that. We know that in the last 4 days ago, so after the invasion began, but before these latest talks were being arranged, that Volodymyr Zelensky and his government were called non-democratic, and the implication in that interview with the Russian Foreign Minister Sergei Lavrov was that Ukraine couldn't continue under this government. But frankly, discussions in war move so quickly, and sides and the options for various countries change so quickly. I wouldn't be surprised if that position has changed, especially with Russian forces coming under what the United States and UK intelligence agencies report a much stronger resistance than expected. It may leave Russia fewer options in terms of how much it's able to demand from Ukraine. Having said that, we also heard that claim on Sunday that nuclear forces may be drawn into this conflict, with that escalation by Russian President Vladimir Putin to up the nuclear threat level from level 1 out of 4 to level 2 out of 4. It's still a minor escalation. We're not talking about imminent nuclear war, but it's the introduction of that threat that might give certain countries pause for thought. And US President Joe Biden is talking to as yet undisclosed Western counterparts today to discuss the latest on how this is all going.
Absolutely indeed. And also, Stuart, very quickly, if you can tell us what the situation is like in Moscow this morning because of the announcement of the financial sanctions. We've heard of reports that people in Russia are lining up at ATMs because they expect that there will be some kind of a cash crunch. So how is Russia, of course, bracing itself up for the possibility of being economically isolated from the rest of the world?
Yeah, the central bank is still trying to reassure companies, businesses, banks and people that everything is going to be fine. But indeed, people are queuing up at ATMs trying to withdraw foreign currency, and there is a fear there will be a run on the ruble. In the last few hours, it's been falling considerably against the US dollar, going from around 100 US dollars to 100 rubles to $1 to around 120. It is a significant fall, around minus 30% when markets opened this morning on Monday. The other thing is the central bank is now introducing quite severe changes to the economy. The interest rate here, the central bank interest rate, has gone from 9.5% to 20%. That's a massive jump and will have a huge impact on people without savings who are in debt and may not be able to pay these loans back. So it's crunch time in terms of the economy here in Russia. We'll see how it plays out over the rest of the day.
All right, thank you very much indeed, Stuart Smith, for joining us from Moscow and getting us all those updates in terms of how the Russians, of course, approaching these talks that are slated to be held in some time from now. WION is now available in your country. Download the app now and get all the news on the move.